right, today I'm going to connect the dots from Caitlin Clark to LeBron James to Tiger Woods to Deion Sanders. I'm going to take you from Caitlin to Deion. A daily dose of Caitlin, a daily dose of Deion, and it's all going to be under the umbrella of idolatry and why I'm concerned about what the sports world and what the current culture is going to do to Caitlin Clark. It's going to be a fascinating discussion. Stick with me. Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining me. If you're listening over Apple, 5-star rating. Give it to me right now. If you're watching over YouTube, hit the subscriptions, hit the likes, hit the comments, get in the chat, have a discussion with me about today's show. The other thing you can do, check out the exclusive, extra Fearless content on Blaze TV. Go to blazetv.com/fearless. Use the promo code fearless, and you can save $20 on your yearly subscription. Today's extra content will focus in on Simone Biles, the gymnast. She's made some sort of comment about how she thought Olympic failure, she'd be booted out of America because of her Olympic failure, or she would be canceled or whatever. She couldn't come home. Steve Kim and I are going to have a discussion about Simone Biles, and this is just another way of saying, like, oh man, a black man can't even drive his car around town. He can't even go pick up his mail without getting killed. Simone Biles says she can't get a silver or bronze medal in the Olympics and feel safe in America. Steve Kim and I will get into it. Fearless extra content. You got to sign up for Blaze TV to get that. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by our great friends at Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers is locking in your price until 2026 when you subscribe to any of their boxes of 100% American meat and seafood. Use my promo code FEARLESS at goodranchers.com and save 10%. We love Good Ranchers. We got to show Good Ranchers the love because they love us and they show us the love by supporting this show. Now, let me get into today's fire starter, and it's just going to be me and you today. And so buckle up. I'm going to unpack a lot, and I'm going to start talking about Caitlin Clark, but I'm going to end talking about Deion Sanders and about an interview that we taped earlier in the week that we will play on Friday. But anyway, sit back. Let me have a discussion with you guys about idolatry. And I'm starting with Caitlin Clark because yesterday she had her introductory press conference in Indianapolis. And a reporter, Greg Doyle of the Indianapolis Star, a columnist there, made a fool of himself. And people are ripping Greg Doyle, and I get it. He's a clown. He does, hey, look at me stuff. That's been the signature of his career. But I think most people are overreacting to what Greg Doyle did, and they're missing the bigger picture. So let's start by giving me the context of here's Doyle interacting with Caitlin Clark at her introductory press conference in Indianapolis yesterday. Play the clip.
Hi, Caitlin. Greg Doyle, Indy Star. Real quick, let me do this.
You like that?
I like that you're here. That you're here.
I do that at my family after every game, so.
Okay,
it's
well, let's
cool.
Start doing it to me and we'll get along just fine.
So that's Greg Doyle. He's doing this, something she does with her family, the heart sign, I love. And then he in typical Greg Doyle fashion, start doing it to me, blah, blah. It's cringy. It's for a 50-year-old man to be doing this to some 22-year-old woman. I get it. It's silly, and I get why people are taking a dump on Greg Doyle. But there's a larger thing going on here. And this is the idolatry that I'm constantly talking about on this show. And the sports world is filled with idolatry, and all idolatry is wrong. All of it leads to a negative outcome. But what's transpired here in the sports world is it's going to be fascinating to see how it impacts Caitlin Clark. She is now an idol. And what happens with idols are they make fools of young people and adults, but in particular adults, because let's just think this through. Greg Doyle, again, he's got to be 50 years old or close to. He's been in this sports writing business for a long time. Here's a 22-year-old woman that he wants to, the first thing he can think to do at a press conference is, let me show Caitlin how much I love her. Let me do the little heart sign. And he's written an apology. He wrote one over Twitter. He's written one in the Kansas City Star. But his intent, I don't think was negative. He's an awkward person. He's a weird person. But I don't think his intent was negative. He wanted to convey to Caitlin Clark, someone he doesn't know, I love you, Caitlin. I worship you. I feel the same way about you, and I want you to do the same thing that you do with your family to me, a perfect stranger. Someone who has no idea what Caitlin Clark does in her personal life, private life. For all we know, and I don't believe this, but for all we know, Caitlin Clark kills cats for fun. Caitlin Clark may hate children. Who knows? She knocks down jump shots, and it's exciting, and it's fun to watch her play. But Greg Doyle wants to take someone he's only watched play basketball, and he's probably only watched her on TV. Well, he probably went to a game when she played at Indiana or whatever, or when Iowa visited Indiana, or maybe he went up to the road and watched her at the university. I don't know, but he doesn't know Caitlin Clark. But he wants to tell her, I love you. That's a level, an indication of idolatry. And it's what Caitlin Clark is about to run headfirst into, is this overwhelming worship of people that all want to ride the Caitlin Clark wave. And there are plenty of you watching, or Jason, have you seen all the Caitlin Clark content you've produced on this show? Haven't you been worshiping at the altar of Caitlin Clark? Haven't you been trying to ride the Caitlin Clark wave? And yes, to some degree, I'm going to plead guilty to that. No question about it. Watch this show, and I've been fascinated by the Caitlin Clark story. But I've been in this business long enough that I know this is a cautionary tale more than likely, and that there have been people like Caitlin Clark before, and I've seen them all fall. No one has been able to survive, in my view, the kind of idolatry, the kind of hero worship, the cult-like following that Caitlin Clark has now just walked into. I've said on this show, like, this is the first time in my lifetime, and I think in American history, where the number one star in all of American sports is a woman. And I'm starting to think the exact same thing that happens to every man that's been put in that position is exactly what's going to happen to Caitlin Clark. And so I want to play you another clip of Caitlin Clark. This is how a basketball player, someone who can knock down three-point shots, this is how she's ushered into the arena and the staging area for this press conference. This is all overwhelming, in my opinion. This is a 22-year-old basketball player. She's done nothing important, and I don't say that to denigrate her. I've enjoyed her basketball career. It puts a smile on my face watching her play. But she's playing a game, and here's how they walked her into the arena. That's not good. That's not good for her. That's not healthy for her. This is what happens to U.S. presidents and powerful people and politicians and super wealthy people. Everybody lines up to to applaud them, to kiss their butt, to tell them what they want to hear, and just smother them in adulation. I've said this, maybe not on this show, but I've said it plenty of times publicly on TV platforms or whatnot. There's only been one time in my life that I've walked into an arena and and been greeted with overwhelming adulation. And it was the greatest feeling I'd ever experienced, and it's the greatest feeling I've experienced in my lifetime. Nothing has ever topped it. And it was when I was an 18-year-old senior in high school. And this is a humorous story, but I'm being factual here. Me and some friends, my senior year of high school, in the spring of our senior year, we put on an event at the high school, a wrestling event. We rented a boxing ring, brought it into the Warren Central High School gym, and put on this big, that we sold tickets to, this big wrestling event in our high school. I was so popular and so beloved at my school that the principal and everybody signed off on Whitlock and his wrestling event. It was me and a guy named Greg Dodge, Shannon Furbrush. I can't remember the other guys, but anyway, I was at a track event when this started. I was on the track team, and we scheduled this wrestling event on the same night as the Marion County Track Championships. And I was in the discus and shot put and should have won them both. But I was so distracted about participating in this wrestling event that I ended up coming in second in the shot put. Kevin, regardless. But I have to show up late to the wrestling event. I'm in the main event, and we're on this clock, and I drive from North Central High School back to Warren Central High School like a bat out of hell to participate in this event, and I show up in my track uniform, track sweats and tank top, and there's 500-600 people in our gym. And my name for the wrestling event was Yukon Moose Whitlock. And so I come running into the gym, and everybody's chanting, Moose, 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 Moose. Everybody. And I wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't expecting it. I run into the gym. Everybody's chanting my name. I get into the ring. Everybody's screaming and yelling and rooting for me. And I was like, oh my God, what an overwhelming feeling. And I can remember at 18 going, this is what Michael Jackson feels like going on stage, except there's 20,000, 30,000 people in an arena screaming for him. How can they deal with it? I just had 500 people screaming my name, and it felt better than sex. How do these idols and stars, how do they handle this? It's the greatest feeling in the world, and I'm not exaggerating. I've experienced it, nothing like that in my life since. I've actually experienced the opposite. I'm not going to spend much time, but I experienced the opposite. I was so polarizing and infamous in Kansas City, and people that followed my career in Kansas City or lived in the Kansas City area. There was a Kansas State-Kansas basketball game when Frank Martin was the coach at Kansas State, and Frank and I have become good friends. But at this time, we were somewhat mortal enemies because I was a critic of Frank and Kansas State's basketball program. I think Michael Beasley was on the team and Bill Walker. It was a very good Kansas State team. And so the Kansas State fans hated me. And I'll never forget, and I wasn't prepared for this, but I walked into the arena for this basketball game 20 minutes before tip-off, and the Kansas State fans were all there because they hate Kansas, a big rivalry game, and Michael Beasley and Kansas State is supposed to beat them. And everybody in that arena, when I walked in, started booing me. And I had to walk across that arena to my seat with everybody booing me. And throughout the game, because I'm sitting right on the front court row, people are yelling and screaming at me. When Kansas State does something good, they yell and scream at me. So I experienced the opposite of that kind of vitriol and being the heel and being the demonized person. It doesn't feel as good as having everybody screaming for you. I say all that to say that's what Caitlin Clark is walking into. Everywhere she goes in Indiana, everywhere she goes, virtually anywhere, there will be people yelling and screaming her name and treating her like she's Elvis Presley or Michael Jackson or whoever, or the Beatles. And it's not going to be a good thing. It's not going to be a good experience. It's not going to bring out the best in her. It's likely, if we look at the history of male athletes, it's likely going to bring out the worst in her over time. And so I'm going to transition to talking about LeBron James here as it relates to Caitlin Clark and what we've seen. And I'll probably mix in a little Tiger Woods. You know, these are, but I want to pause for 1 second, talk about one of our great new sponsors, ZBiotics. Let's face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day though like I used to. I have to make a choice. I can either have a great night or a great next day. That is until I found ZBiotics. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by a PhD scientist to tackle rough mornings after having a few drinks. I'm going to be facing this situation next week. My birthday's next week. I'm going to socialize with some friends. You guys know, I'm not a big drinker. And so it doesn't take much to get me a little tipsy because I just don't drink that often. But next week, it's my birthday. I'm going to socialize with some friends and families. I'm going to have a few drinks. I'm going to take ZBiotics before drinking because I want to be fresh and ready to tackle the next day. So ZBiotics, and I've talked with you guys about this previously. A few weeks ago, I had a business associate come to town. We had a great social event out here in Nashville. Again, socializing with a friend, a business associate, had a few drinks. I was able the next day to come in here, do the show, feel great, feel energized because I took ZBiotics. Gonna do it next week for my birthday. This isn't about drinking irresponsibly. This isn't about getting fall down drunk. But if you're like me and you have a lot of responsibilities and you need to be fresh and ready to attack each day, and occasionally you need to socialize and you like to have a social drink or two, I couldn't recommend anything better for you than ZBiotics. Go to zbiotics.com/fearless. That's zbiotics.com/fearless. That's zbiotics.com. You can save 15% off your first order when you use my promo code FEARLESS at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/fearless and use the promo code FEARLESS at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring this episode and for making it okay for me to go out and have a good time next week with my friends and family as I celebrate my birthday. So let me transition back to LeBron James and why I think Caitlin Clark is going to have the same American Idol experience as LeBron James. Caitlin Clark is the biggest deal in basketball since LeBron James came out of that Akron high school and joined the NBA 21 years ago, 20 years ago. I can't remember. But LeBron James is a big deal. And so there's many of you sitting there going, well, hold on, man. Jason Whitlock, he hates LeBron James. If you've been following me, I have not always hated LeBron James. I have not always been a critic of LeBron James. At one point, I was a supporter. I liked LeBron James the first 7-8 years of his NBA career. I liked LeBron James in Cleveland. I'll never forget being at the NBA Finals when he took on the San Antonio Spurs and got his butt kicked. I can remember getting introduced to LeBron after that game by one of his business associates, Maverick Carter, and just thinking like, man, this kid's great. He's got the league in his hands, and yeah, he got smoked here by Tim Duncan and all the talent Tim Duncan is surrounded by. But man, the league is in a great place with this kid leading the way. Liked LeBron James. If you go to, I believe it's a 2011 article that I wrote about Maverick Carter, who was LeBron James's right-hand man. I'm at Fox Sports at the time. Everybody in the media was killing Maverick Carter and the team of people around LeBron James. This is really heightened because after the decision, if you guys remember how poorly received the decision was and how narcissistic, and this is when like LeBron James started walking into that idolatry bubble and becoming very narcissistic. And but yeah, I was sympathetic at that time. Had a relationship with Maverick Carter. I knew Rich Paul a little bit, I believe at that time. But within LeBron James's camp, I was all good, and I was supportive of LeBron James. And I'm the only person who was willing to defend Maverick Carter as LeBron James's business partner. And I wrote a very long piece trying to add some perspective around Maverick Carter and LeBron James. I basically legitimized Maverick Carter in writing in 2011. I say all this to say there was a time when I liked LeBron James and when I was close to people in his camp and when I was supportive of LeBron James. There was a time, if you go back to even 2014, and this is after he went to Miami and all of that, there was no disdain for LeBron James. There was no, and not that I have animus now, but I was not the LeBron James critic that I am now. Even in 2014, I hate to say this, I hate to admit it because I don't think it's a great look for me, but I can remember in 2014 or 13, whenever the Trayvon Martin thing went down, I suggested to Maverick Carter, hey man, LeBron should put on a hoodie and they should take a photo, the team photo, supporting Trayvon Martin. This is early on before I knew anything about the Trayvon Martin thing being a hoax. This was just some young black kid in Florida that had seemingly gotten unfairly killed by George Zimmerman, and LeBron's playing for the Miami Heat. Look, maybe they would have done that photo with or without my suggestion. Who knows? But I'm just telling you, I was not always hostile to LeBron James and his camp. And if you go back to 2004, in an ESPN article I wrote, when LeBron was deciding whether he should go back to Cleveland after leaving Miami, I wrote something about how pride should play zero role. Everybody in the media was like, man, LeBron would have to swallow his pride and, he's got to have pride. He can't go work with Dan Gilbert again. Dan Gilbert criticized LeBron and Bob. And I wrote, this isn't about pride and this isn't about swallowing pride. LeBron needs to do and I'm not saying that they followed my lead on this. What I'm saying is I was so connected that I understood the thinking of LeBron and his camp. And LeBron basically 2-3 days later, when he made the announcement that he was going back to Cleveland, he explained how this isn't about pride and this isn't about swallowing pride. And he basically mirrored everything that I had said in that column. I say all this to say, in my view, LeBron was a great kid coming out of high school for a high-profile athlete. Because being a high-profile athlete limits you quite a bit in terms of being a great person. You're just too worshiped. But he was a great kid. And I liked the first decade of LeBron James's NBA career. But idolatry and the worship and how athletes get treated, in my view, changed LeBron James. Changed LeBron James and actually brought out the worst in LeBron James. When you get swallowed up by Nike and the corporate agenda and you have to start pushing the things that Nike wants you to push rather than things that you believe, that's how you end up working for a shoe company that's trying to curry favor with China. That's how you end up denigrating America and American culture and pretending like America's the worst place on the planet, because you're doing this because Nike wants to stay in the good graces of China and the CCP. And so just to relate all of this to Caitlin Clark and what we need to be prepared for, she's in bed with Nike. She went on Saturday Night Live wearing a Nike jacket. She's in bed with Nike. Nike is in the business of building up idols, people for us to worship. And it normally does not go well. Now, hats off to Michael Jordan. He's someone that has somewhat survived the whole idolatry thing, being in bed with Nike, but I don't think LeBron has. I don't think Tiger Woods has. I think Tiger Woods, for the most part, good kid, good intentions, but living in that idolatry bubble, being worshiped everywhere you go. I think it's part of the reason 2009 Thanksgiving and Tiger marrying a woman with no intentions of being loyal to that woman and out screwing every whore that he could and trying to run around with Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley, the whole idolatry thing. Everybody, you can do no wrong. It eventually destroys you. That's my fear as it relates to Caitlin Clark. And some of you, oh, well, she's a woman and she comes from a great family and this, that, and it's no protection. It is not protection for what idolatry does to a person. Any of these people we run out here as idols, it ends up destroying them. That's why that's what happens to child movie stars. That's what happens now to professional athletes and athletes that are worshiped and make all the millions of dollars, and everybody runs around and just kisses their rear end nonstop. Caitlin Clark, does she come from a better family situation than LeBron James? Absolutely. But that's not. It's a defense against the kind of idolatry that she's going to face. But it is no kryptonite for it. It does not stop idolatry. It does not stop idolatry from ruining you. May take a little longer, but idolatry has been put on steroids through social media and all of that. And so I'm happy for Caitlin Clark. There's part of me that thinks she's going to be a force for good, or she can be a force for good. But then I remember, so what is idolatry? We're looking for a LeBron James or a Caitlin Clark to do what Jesus can only do. And we start thinking they're more important than the truth. They're more important, and protecting them and protecting their image is the most important thing we can do. Oh my God, if Caitlin Clark just does all the right things, young women around America are going to follow her lead and do X, Y, and Z. If LeBron James, if we just protect him and protect his image, young black men and young men in general are going to do all the right things. That's idolatry. Put someone up on a pedestal and think they can do only what Jesus Christ can do. And so let me, as I talk about idolatry all the time. So we think protecting black skin and black people. Oh, we just all stick together and protect black people and rationalize and defend any and everything they do. Oh, things are going to be so much better for black people. No. If we protect Jesus Christ, if we promote, celebrate, worship, obey Jesus Christ, then things will get better for all of us, all image bearers, regardless of what shade of skin color you have. That's what we need to be focused on. The world keeps sending us all of these idols. LeBron James, Michael Jordan, now Caitlin Clark. Nothing changes. The idols end up getting turned out and start working for the other side, or start working for, or just they just get swept up in believing the hype that they're important. They turn themselves into an idol, and they start believing that if people just protect my image, if people just protect me, don't they see how much better the world would be? It's going to happen to Caitlin Clark. I'm going to pray that it doesn't, that she's strong enough and that she fights those forces, and she comes from a strong enough family she can fight those forces. But past behavior is the greatest indicator of future behavior. And you might be sitting there and say, oh, she's a white woman and she's a woman and she comes from this and she comes from that. She's an idol, an athletic idol. And the last pivot I'm going to make, and this is part of this is a setup for tomorrow's show, but part of it is just a story that kind of fell into our laps this week, and it's related to Deion Sanders. And I'm just going to, and because Deion Sanders to me is one of the great idols of all time. That he's gone 40 some odd years being an idol, living under this brand of prime time. And I'm going to give you another example of just how idolatry works and how hero worship works and what the ramifications are. Because again, it's like you got Caitlin Clark, 22. Age 22. You got LeBron. Isn't LeBron around age 40 now? And then you got Deion Sanders, who's 56, 57 years old. All different stages of idolatry. And the descent into idolatry ends up taking you where Deion Sanders is. And so I want to take care of our great friends at Balance of Nature, and then I'm going to transition into talking about Deion Sanders. Making sure you have fruits and vegetables in your diet is important for maintaining a healthy diet, but it can also be difficult, especially if you're busy. The average person doesn't even eat half of the recommended servings in a day. That's a huge gap in nutrition, and inflation has seriously increased the cost of fruits and vegetables. That's why Balance of Nature provides an on-the-go solution, and they haven't raised their prices for 10 years. Their proprietary blend of 31 fruits and vegetables comes in easy-to-swallow capsules and will give your body so much of the nourishment it needs. Imagine trying to eat 31 different kinds of produce in a single day. Well, that's what you're getting with Balance of Nature. Fruits and veggies. When you go to balanceofnature.com, you'll get 35% off plus $10 off any additional sets with your first order as a preferred customer by using my promo code FEARLESS. That's limited to 5 sets, but you'll save a ton of money while getting the fruits and vegetables you need in your diet. Go to balanceofnature.com and use the promo code FEARLESS for 35% off. That's balanceofnature.com. Back to my conversation about idolatry and Deion Sanders. And so earlier this week, a man by the name of John Darjean visited us here in Nashville. He had reached out a week or two earlier saying, hey, Jason, I need a platform where I can tell my story. You know, I put out a documentary trying to explain my story. I can't get anyone willing to interview me. Many people are afraid of Deion Sanders. But this story that I want to unpack and tell needs to be told so people can understand who Deion Sanders is. John came into town earlier this week. We taped the interview with him, I believe, on Tuesday. We're going to play that interview tomorrow. I want to give you the foundation for understanding that interview. And I want to be crystal clear here that do I have an opinion on who's right and who's wrong in this situation? Yes. But my opinion is really irrelevant. I'm just going to expose the facts that were presented to me. Then tomorrow I'm going to let you listen to John Darjean out of his own mouth, and you make your own decision. I'm not going to try to force my opinion down your throat. But what I want to use this part of the conversation is to explain the ramifications of idolatry and how idols work and behave. And I get why many of you are big Deion Sanders fans. Great athlete, produced a lot of great memories for us as an athlete, good-looking guy, charismatic guy, seems to be a humorous, funny person. Get it, why you like him. All those memories he's connected to, and he's super successful, he's wealthy, and many of you have been trained to and programmed, and I used to be this same way, but people with money, we tend to worship and think we need to be more like them. I don't think that way anymore. Some of you still do. Deion is a lifelong idol. And idolatry and being an idol undermines you as a person. It undermines your evolution. You've heard me talk on this show about why is Deion living up to a persona that he created at age 15 or 16 years old? And why are we good with that? Deion's always been that way. He's been prime time since he was 17. And somehow we think carrying that persona for 40 years is a good thing. It is not. And what that persona does is make you more concerned with protecting that persona rather than doing the right thing. And this is impacted, according to John Darjean, it's impacted John Darjean. So who is John Darjean? He's a former high school athlete in the state of Louisiana who was drafted by the New York Yankees, I believe in 1997. Injuries and other things limited his baseball career. He never made it to the majors. He made some friends in baseball, people like Gary Sheffield, maybe briefly met Deion Sanders back in the 90s, but John Darjean ended up, because he played college baseball in Dallas, and he ended up going back to the Dallas area and started his own baseball camp and other community initiatives in Dallas. And so he was no different than how Deion had prime prep and was trying to prep football players. John Darjean had a baseball academy, camp, AAU type program that he was using trying to train up baseball players. And he says he met Deion at the time that Deion was running prime prep in Dallas. This would be in the early 2010s. And so when prime prep gets shut down in 2014 or 15, and this is where Deion's kids, Shilo, and they were all going to prime prep, they end up moving into the Focus Learning Academy, another charter school in Dallas, where John Darjean was working as the head baseball coach and a security officer at the Focus Learning Academy. Deion and maybe 100 or so of the kids from prime prep, including Shilo, transfer into Focus Learning Academy. 2 to 3 weeks after Shilo transfers in as a 15-year-old freshman. Deion had held him back a year for athletic purposes, 15-year-old freshman. Shilo gets involved in an incident with John Darjean. The security, the teacher or the school had asked John Darjean to usher Shilo out of a classroom because the teacher was complaining Shilo had started a dice game, shooting dice in the classroom while the teacher's trying to teach, and he's got other kids around him shooting dice and whatever. And so they send John Darjean to escort Deion down to the principal's office or the disciplinary office. John Darjean goes down there. I'm going to cut to the chase and just say that at some point, after escorting him to the principal's office, there's a struggle over Shilo's use of a cell phone. And John Darjean has his narrative on what happened, and there's video evidence that appears to back up John Darjean's narrative, and there's witness statements that back up John Darjean's narrative. But at some point, Shilo hits John Darjean, according to lawsuits and depositions and everything, and it fractures some vertebrae, does some spinal damage to John Darjean. He has to have surgery, and he's permanently disabled. And we'll let John explain this tomorrow in the interview, but you can go look up the court records. There was a lawsuit, a $13 million judgment against Shilo Sanders, Pilar Sanders, who is Shilo's mother and Deion's ex-wife. And Deion was originally involved in the case, but somehow wiggled his way and his name out of the case. And so the judgment is against Shilo and Pilar. Say all that to say that Deion being an idol, if you look at this case, is how he wiggled his way out of it. And it's likely why Shilo and Pilar, they've never given John Darjean $1 of the judgment that was leveled against them by a judge. This has been argued and settled in a court of law. I think the judgment came down 1.5 years, 2 years ago. John Darjean now lives in the Dominican Republic. According to John Darjean, he's broke. He's disabled. He's been permanently injured by the events that went on with Shilo. And again, I'm going to let him tomorrow, we've already done the interview, I'll let him tomorrow break down his assertions. But I've looked at this case. We started looking at it last week. We looked at it more this week. And this is an example of how idolatry works and how it perverts truth and how it lets the powerful get away with things that the people that lack power, lack worship, lack money, they get away with this type of behavior and this type of malfeasance because they have the power and because we're so caught up in our idolatry of Deion and whoever these other idols are, we don't actually care about the little people. And I hate to talk this way, but John Darjean is a black man from Louisiana, and no one cares what happened to him. He, according to him, he can't get anybody to give him a platform to even talk about what transpired and how Deion, and this is according to him, and you'll hear it tomorrow in the interview, and you can watch depositions where this is all talked about. But he says the only reason he tried to get that phone out of Shilo's hands is because Deion was on the phone with him, telling him, in the name of Jesus, get that phone out of my son's hand. This incident's going on at school. Deion works at the school, but he's out of town and he's on the phone instructing John Darjean what to do with his son. The man tries to get the phone from Shilo. Shilo elbows him and punches him in the chest and neck area. This man, in a delayed reaction, he thinks he's fine. But when he walks away from the event on this day, just within minutes, he's lost control of his urinary tract. He pisses on himself. He starts feeling tingling and everything. He falls to the ground. They call an ambulance and paramedics. They rush him to the hospital. There's all the medical records showing all the procedures and his disability and all of this. And at some point, maybe a year later, 10 months later, when things are playing out and people are trying to figure out what's going on with Deion's son, there's been no lawsuit filed at this point, but Deion makes some statements to TMZ accusing this man of attacking Shilo, and that's what triggered Darjean to sue Deion Sanders. I want to play you several clips from depositions taken from this lawsuit. I believe the lawsuit was filed in 2016 or 17. It's been settled, I believe, here in the past couple of years. There was a settlement for $12 million or $11.8 million. And so I'm giving you this background so you can understand tomorrow's interview with John Darjean, and I'm giving you this background so you can see how an idol gets in conflict and treats a person they consider beneath them with a disrespect and a disregard for truth that's appalling. So I want to play the very first clip, and this is Deion in the deposition. And again, John Darjean is black, no different than Deion or Shilo, but Deion plays the race card. Let's watch the clip.
Okay. You also mentioned race.
Yes.
You mentioned African American descent.
Right.
Do you think in any way the altercation between my client and your son was race oriented?
No, you missed it because you're white. You missed it.
You're saying I missed. Oh,
yeah.
You're saying I missed this because I'm white?
Yes, I was saying of African American descent because only two of us in this room are African Americans. That's what I meant by that.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with my son being African American. It has something to do with he and I being African American.
Okay. And what is that?
I was saying it's only two African Americans in here, and one worked his butt off and accumulated a couple dollars.
And who is that?
That would be I.
That would be you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What does that have to do with this case?
Why do you think we're here?
No, well, you tell me.
We're here because he's broke, don't want to work, and want money, because I worked my butt off for it.
Okay. So that's why you think we're here?
No, that's why I know we're here.
Okay.
I don't think that. I'm very accurate on that one.
All right. So you believe my client has made a claim against you because somehow you have accumulated wealth?
Of course, he made a claim against my son as well as I, because this isn't his first instance.
Okay.
And I don't know any of those guys that you're suing.
Guys, I want to talk to you about a great documentary we put out here at The Blaze. Have you ever wondered just exactly how it is that our politicians enter the public service making moderate salaries, but then end up walking away with an astonishing amount of money? Where are all these tens of millions of dollars coming from? And while they're busy ensuring their own earning potential, who's actually doing the job we sent them there to do in the first place? We all learned from an early age that the best way to get rich in America was to get a degree and start a business, or maybe take a job on Wall Street, to work hard and save even harder so that we could make a better life for ourselves and for our children. Turns out it's way easier than that. All you have to do is get elected to Congress. That's why you need to check out our documentary, Bought and Paid For, How Politicians Get Filthy Rich, available now only on Blaze TV. Go to fearlessoriginals.com and use the promo code Whitlock Originals for $30 off your annual subscription. So, and I'll show you some different witness testimony, and we'll hear from John Darjean. It seems pretty well documented that John Darjean suffered some pretty consequential injuries on September 17th, 2015. There's doctor statements, there's medical records, there's video evidence, all of this. And according to John, he did it. And there's plenty of evidence of this, that he did it at the behest. He had a confrontation with Shilo at the behest of Deion. Deion's on the phone, and Deion, like initially before the lawsuit, he basically co-signs the entire narrative that John Darjean alleges in the lawsuit. He co-signed this at the time in 2015 in an interview with Child Protective Services. This next clip is longer, and I'll ask these guys to stop and start it, and I'll throw in comments, but this is Deion getting called out and questioned about what he said to Child Protective Services, where he acknowledges that his son did this, and then what he's saying in deposition. This is a long clip. I just want to play it, and I'll add in some comments, ask these guys to stop the clip. I'll add in some comments, but we will get through this. Play the clip.
Do you know of any witnesses to the altercation between Shilo and Mr. Darjean,
Yes.
other than Shilo and Mr. Darjean?
Yes.
Who?
I don't know their names. It was 3 people at the front desk and 2 people in the gym. I don't know who it was.
Do you know the names?
I didn't have my own investigation. I don't do that.
Have you ever talked to them?
Yes, I talked to them.
And who'd you talk to?
I don't know their names.
Okay, what'd they tell you?
That he attacked my son.
Anything else?
That you do not wrestle a kid down to the ground and choke him trying to get a phone away from him. That's not protocol.
Anything else?
It went on. I don't recall verbatim.
I just want to know what you know. Anything else?
Yeah, it don't make some sense though. It's not gonna make a difference right now.
Well, I understand, but again, it's your responsibility to answer questions. Do you recall anything else you were told by these alleged witnesses?
Not right now at this point.
Okay. Did you talk to Coach Shields?
Yes.
And what did Coach Shields tell you?
Well, Coach Shields uses profanity and all that, so I can't regurgitate or recite what he said.
Well, you can save the profanity.
Okay. That, you know what, was way out of line.
Who was way out of line?
Stu.
John Darjean?
Yes.
Okay.
It's way out of line. He could have handled that a whole different way.
Did he say anything else?
He need his kicked.
Huh?
He need his you know what kicked for that.
Who?
Gentleman behind you.
John Darjean?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else Coach Shields told you?
That's about it. That's the summation of it.
Did he tell you he witnessed the accident?
Yes, he was. I think he was there.
Did he tell you he was the closest witness to the altercation between Mr. Darjean and your son Shilo? Mm-hmm. Is that a yes?
I don't know. We didn't talk about were you the closest person there. No, he just said he saw what went down.
Okay. Did he tell you that your son Shilo struck my client Mr. Darjean first?
Not one bit.
Are you aware that that Coach Shields put that in a written statement that he penned with his own hand on the day of this accident?
Let's put him on the stand, man. Let's see how it plays out.
So I just asked you the question. Are you aware of that?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. Have you read Coach Shields' statement?
No.
Have you ever employed Coach Shields?
That's a stupid question. How can I employ Coach Shields?
Have you ever employed him?
No.
Has he ever volunteered with you to coach football anywhere?
No. So now you're saying he could be had, he's tainted?
Are you finished?
I'm not getting started. I ain't got started yet.
Okay. Sir, let me show you what's marked as Exhibit 5, and I'll represent to you that this document...
Let's stop right here for a second. Because I want to give y'all some context that will, being fair to Deion. Deion clearly has an attitude with the lawyer, and he's being condescending and a tiny bit mean-spirited. To some degree, I don't blame him. And I'm going to tell you why. The lawsuit, the original lawsuit, was $42 million is what Deion was getting sued for, and Shilo. And so if someone's suing me for $42 million, I'm going to be adversarial. I'm going to have an attitude. I would hope that I would handle it better than Deion, and I would hope that it would never get to this point where there had to be this kind of a lawsuit. John Darjean, you'll see in his interview that we release tomorrow, his contention is that for a year, he did not sue Deion Sanders and did not think he would have to sue Deion Sanders because Deion Sanders put him in harm's way as it relates to Shilo, and he assumed for a year that me and Deion will talk and we will settle this as men and we'll reach some sort of agreement. He claims Deion Sanders never talked to him, never once. After this event happened on September 17, 2015, Deion talks to him that day, says to him, in the name of Jesus, get that phone from Shilo. I'm telling you in the name of Jesus. This is according to John Darjean. You can watch the interview tomorrow. You can go to, he's got on YouTube, he's got a documentary that he put out called Prime Time for Truth. I think he put it out a year and a half ago. It's available. You can see more of this detail. You can see more of this in detail, his side of the story. You're going to hear a lot of it tomorrow, but you can go double check what he's put out there even before this interview that he did with me. But I don't blame Deion for being agitated. He's being sued for $42 million. Now, again, John Darjean says, I would have never sued if Deion hadn't gone to TMZ and if Deion had communicated with me and we could have worked this out as men. His contention, again, we had a disciplinary problem with Shilo. Shilo was a known problem at the school and at any school he's been to. And Deion gets on the phone and begs me to get involved with taking this phone because Deion did not want his son, because Deion was going through a very contentious breakup with his wife. And Shilo was living with Deion under Deion's stewardship. And Shilo wanted to go back to Pilar and live with her. At this time, he's very agitated towards Deion. Anyway, I get why Deion is agitated and on edge. Not the way I would have handled it, but I just want to add that bit of context so you can be fair as you're watching this. Let's go back to the clip.
Was produced to me by your lawyer, Mr. Boyd, and it is a statement that Coach Shields wrote out on September 17, 2015. Do you see that that is what it is?
Yep.
Okay. Have you read this statement before?
Nope.
Is this the first time?
Yep.
Okay. I want to go through the statement with you. And by the way, before we get into the statement, have you talked to Coach Shields more than one time about the altercation?
No.
Just that one time?
Yep.
And do you remember when that was?
Nope.
Do you remember where you were?
Nope.
Do you remember if you were on the phone or was it a face-to-face conversation?
Don't recall.
Okay. The statement is dated September 17, 2015. Is that right? I think it's the one right before it, Judge. The statement is dated September 17, 2015. Is that right?
Yep.
That's the day of the altercation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It says, on or about 9/17/15 at 12:10 p.m. in the FLA gym, I noticed an incident escalating in the gym near the front door. Mr. Darjean had to restrain a student for not giving him the phone. Did I read that right?
Yep.
Did Coach Shields tell you that when you talked to him?
Nope, we didn't get into that.
Okay. Then it states, student was asked several times and he refused each time to hand over the cell phones. Did I read that correctly?
Yep, keep going.
And did Coach Shields tell you that?
We didn't talk about that.
And by the way, did Shilo have 2 cell phones?
I have no idea.
Was he allowed by you to have 2 cell phones?
No.
Then it states, student got out of his seat and walked to the front door as if he was going to walk out of the building. Did I read that correctly?
Yep.
Did Coach Shields tell you that?
No, sir.
Then it states Mr. Darjean began walking behind the student and asking him for the cell phone again. Did I read that right?
Yep.
Did Coach Shields tell you that?
Nope.
Then it states student refused and jerked away from Mr. Darjean, hitting him with elbow to the chest area. Did I read that correctly?
Yep.
Did Coach Shields tell you that's what he witnessed?
No, sir. Keep going.
Never told you that.
Keep going.
Sir, did he never told you that?
No, sir. It's about to get good now.
Yes, sir. Did you ask Coach Shields who started the fight?
Yes, I did.
What did he say?
Your client.
John Darjean?
Yes.
Okay. Then it states he was then restrained.
Up against the window.
Why don't you read it? Read
He
it.
was, let me read it with inflection. I know you love this, is cool. Okay, here we go. Let me go back a little bit so I could get to your area. Refused and jerked away from Mr. Darjean, hitting him with an elbow to the chest area.
Now that's your son, right?
Yeah, that's my son.
Okay. Do you believe that's what
He
happened?
restrained away, hit him in the chest area. I can see that happening.
Can you see Shilo doing that?
I can see him reaching back.
Objection, Your Honor. He's going through this letter. He's asking Mr. Sanders about what his belief is an incident that it's undisputed. He was not there.
Right.
It's rank speculation, and I understand this. I'll just object to the form.
He knows his son, Your Honor.
All right, your
Yes.
objection's in the record.
There we go.
Can you see your son doing that?
He was restrained up against the window. He was restrained up against the window.
Okay.
I went to move the other students, meaning I had my back turned. They were nearby for safety reasons. Then I returned to get Mr. Darjean because the student was yelling that he couldn't breathe. Wow. Miss Mobley came out to assist as I walked away to continue instruction with my gym class.
And then he signs it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to go back to something that you did allude to. It states, student refused and jerked away from Mr. Darjean, hitting him with elbow to the chest area. Can you see your son striking Mr. Darjean with his elbow in his chest if Mr. Darjean goes to get the phone from him?
Objection to form.
I don't know what security officer tries to take a phone from a child.
Objection unresponsive.
Can you see your son doing that, sir?
No, not the way this is playing out.
Okay, but earlier, sir, you volunteered. I didn't even ask you the question.
Yeah.
You volunteered. I can see Shilo doing that.
No,
Didn't you say that?
What I was implying that you so rudely interrupted me because it was my time to read, but you kept jumping in there like it was a double dutch. When it's my time, let me have my time.
Okay, the record will speak.
That's Deion Sanders. And that's a whole lot of gobbledygook. That's a whole lot of double talk. He called it a double dutch, but it's a lot of double talk. It's Deion contending that some coach told him, yeah, John Darjean was too rough and shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z, need his butt kicked. But that same coach did a statement on the day of the incident that completely contradicts that. And Deion, never talked about it, didn't know anything about it. Then Deion said, yeah, I could see Shilo doing that. And then 60 seconds later, nah, I can't see him doing that. I'm going to tie all this together. And there's a bunch of material I could present. I just want to play you a secretary whose desk sat facing this glass wall where the incident, the altercation occurred. She witnessed the incident firsthand. This is SOT number 5. Sandra Haynes, I think is this woman's name. She witnessed it firsthand, gave a written statement, and here she is talking at the deposition under oath. Here's her explanation of what she saw.
Is exhibit number 1 a true and accurate copy of the written statement that you gave on September 17, 2015?
Yes, sir.
And is it completely in your handwriting?
Yes, sir.
And did you sign it at the bottom?
Yes, sir. Yes,
That's my son.
What I'd like for you to do is read your statement to the court and jury.
Okay. 17:15, I heard a loud banging noise against the FLE glass. I witnessed Shilo punching Coach Darjean in the face area. Then Coach Darjean pinned Shilo against the glass with his forearm and took Shilo to the ground. Miss Nash and Coach Gaines went to assist Coach John with the situation. And then I signed my name, Sandra Haynes.
And then when I fell back, my mind instantly went into restrain.
So that's Sandra Haynes, and that's a little snippet of the video. And there were a lot of cameras at this school. Deion, and we won't play the clip, maybe we'll get into it tomorrow, or I think it's on the interview I did with John Darjean, where Deion basically says he talked someone into providing him the different camera angles, and that those videos have mysteriously disappeared because there was clear video evidence that showed everything that happened, and someone could show those angles and there would be no mystery. But Deion got a hold of them. Someone slipped them to him, whatever. I could play it for you. I think I play it in tomorrow's interview with John. It's all available on the internet. It's all available on YouTube. Prime Time for Truth. Punch that into YouTube. You can find it for yourself. I'm not going to play some more of this back and forth because it's just not that interesting. But this part I think is really germane. Shilo, in one of these depositions, ends up talking about how at the time of this altercation, Deion is threatening him about putting him in a juvenile detention center. That's how problematic Shilo has been. And everybody's pretty much on record that as a young boy, Shilo, very problematic. I'm not doing this to shame Shilo or to even really talk about Shilo. He's a kid. I was a problematic child. People can grow out of that. I was a problematic child. I know plenty of guys that were problematic as teenage boys and did stupid things and just grew out of that. This really isn't about Shilo. This is about Deion and an idol and the cover-up that's going on to protect Shilo, protect Deion's brand, and it speaks to, and this is what I'm about, idols and this myth that, I'm doing all of this for black people and for working class black people. If you just uplift me, I'm going to uplift you. And the reality is they're elites. They're controlled by even higher, more powerful elites. And everything that they do is to promote other elites. And how John Darjean gets treated in this instance. He gets injured by Deion's son. He gets instructions from Deion that put him in the path of Deion's son, who Deion, according to Shilo, was threatening to put in juvenile detention because he was so uncontrollable. So at the behest of Deion and getting in the middle of Deion's situation with Pilar and his son, and this is according to John Darjean, Deion, in the name of God, get that son. We're brothers in Christ, blah, blah, blah. He does this and gets cold cocked by Shilo and suffers debilitating injuries. Deion ghosts him. And then eventually John Darjean sues Deion Sanders. But here's Shilo, SOT 7, talking about Deion's plans to put him in a juvenile detention center at this same time.
And then your dad did exactly what he told you he was going to do, didn't he? The
What?
next day, he sent you to juvenile.
Not before something else happened.
Was there something else, the fight you got in the next day when you went back with the kid in class?
No, it was when Darjean choked me and slammed my head against the.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. My point was, your dad said, I'm going to send him to juvenile, and then he in fact did. You said it was like 1 or 2 days in between, send you to juvenile. He did
Yes.
send you there.
Yes.
He was already going to send you there before.
No, he wasn't.
Did he not say, I'm going to send him to juvenile? Did you-
After Darjean had called him,
Right. So after, and Darjean talks to him well before you.
he's been threatening me with juvenile probably since I got back from the first time.
Your dad has.
Yes.
Okay. And so, and Darjean talks to your dad before you and Darjean have your physical altercation, right?
Yes.
Okay. So even before the physical stuff occurred and your dad heard Darjean's side of it, or Darjean told a side that wasn't right in your opinion, even before any of that happened, your dad had already told Darjean, and you heard him say it, I'm sending him to juvenile.
Yes.
That was already his plan.
He's been threatening me with that.
Okay. And that was another threat. He made that same threat again that day.
Yes.
Okay. And you took it seriously because you thought you were fixing to get sent, and your mom wouldn't know where you were getting sent to.
I always take it seriously.
Okay. And you took it seriously that day.
Yes.
Took it so seriously, you didn't do what the adult told you. You hung on to the phone, right, so that your mom would know what happened.
I'm playing that to let you know the volatile situation that Deion's request of John Darjean, get that cell phone. If you listen to Shilo, it's any of you that have either been kids or been parents, it's easy to discern what's going on here. Deion and Pilar are divorced. Shilo would rather be with his mama. Shilo and Deion are battling. Deion is probably trying to be a good father and disciple his son and get his son under control, to the point that he's threatening to put his son in juvenile detention. And so that's the volatile situation that John Darjean was pushed into. John Darjean says at Deion's request. And it blows up, and John Darjean is the only one that suffered major injuries. Shilo was not injured. In fact, according to everybody, according to John Darjean, according to what you just heard in that deposition, the next day after September 17th, Shilo beat up the kid. This is according to John Darjean, and if you listen to what they're talking about in this deposition, that snitched on him about shooting dice in the classroom. So here's an elite worth millions of dollars. Here's a varsity baseball coach and security office who's probably a thousandaire, jumping into the middle of the chaos that is Deion's personal life and a son who's volatile and out of control, to the point that Deion threatened to put him in juvenile detention, to the point that if you listen to other people that worked at the Focus Learning Academy, from the moment Shilo stepped into that school, he was a major problem and headache. John Darjean gets involved in this, spinal injury, neck injuries, long rehab, pain he'll be dealing with for the rest of his life. And Deion Sanders, a year later, telling TMZ, no, this man jumped on my son, and he's not a victim. He's just broke and poor and just wants to get money from me. Deion's been an idol his whole life. He's been allowed to get away with everything because he's been so talented and he's been so worshiped. People tune into this show, man, Whitlock, you too hard on Deion, and don't you just understand? You're bringing down the black man, and oh God, it's just damaging all the black people. I'm bringing down an idol. Idolatry kills, it destroys, it misleads. It allows elites to get away with exploiting working class, regular people. I'm actually arguing things that are in the best interest of working class, regular people. Maybe this entire audience, maybe everybody in the chat, maybe everybody in the comments, maybe you're all multimillionaire elites and what I'm arguing doesn't work for you. Or maybe you're sick with idolatry. And there are these people you all want to place on a pedestal. You're not doing them any good. You're not doing yourself any good. I'm going to end today, and this is just the last part of the setup for the interview we'll play of John Darjean tomorrow. I'm going to end it just with the last, I think, 5-6 minutes of John Darjean's documentary that kind of walks you through a summation of his injuries and the impact of that event. It starts with, I think, someone from Child Protective Service or an official person explaining how under Texas law, John Darjean did nothing wrong. Then it transitions into the fallout from the injuries and how severe the injuries were, and then the impact of those injuries and the impact of Deion's allegations or the dispute between John Darjean and Deion Sanders. It's about 6 minutes, but it's the perfect setup, I think, for you to understand the conversation we'll air tomorrow with John Darjean. Let's play the clip.
John didn't do anything wrong as far as discipline goes or interacting with an adult to a child in a facility that had cameras everywhere. John put Shilo on the floor, pressed him against the wall to restrain him to keep from being harmed any further. Under the state of Texas law, he has the right to do that. In the state of Texas specifically, if you assault a security officer, it carries the same penalty as assaulting a peace officer.
always in the hospital all the time.
The thing that really that was so difficult for me was to realize how much pain and anguish
So, I know many of you that are filled with idolatry or irate. Why is Jason giving this guy a platform? Hey, this happened years ago. Why bring it up now? And if you go all the way back to the beginning of the show where I started with Caitlin Clark, there's this, and I'm having to deal with this myself in real time. There's this belief that, oh, look at this progress we're making. Finally, women athletes are going to be treated like men. And, you know, women basketball players are going to be treated like NBA players and other professional athletes. And Caitlin Clark is going to be an idol. And is this a good thing? Do we want women athletes treated like male athletes? Are the way we are treating male athletes, is that actually good for the athlete and for society? Is building up more idols, is that a good thing? Because what idols do, and what I've been arguing on this show as it relates to food, I made food an idol. As it relates to sex, I made sex an idol. As it relates to, you know, all these people have made their gender an idol. They've made their alternative sexual lifestyles an idol. All of this idolatry, all these things that we think are so important, they're actually destroying us. And they're destroying the individuals and they're destroying American society. And we've so wrapped up in our idolatry that many of you that will never be an idol, will never be wealthy. Deion Sanders, LeBron James, Caitlin Clark wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire. But you think caping up for them is going to benefit you. And you think denying a John Darjean, someone with nothing, someone who was never really a professional athlete, you think it's perfectly fine that they don't have a voice, that there's no place for them to speak out, and that the whole system is catered towards defending arguing the complaints of other idols. Oh my God, Megan Rapinoe, she's not paid enough to play soccer. Let me go fight for her. Oh, WNBA players are going to play 4 months of basketball and make $70,000. Oh, that's unfair. We must right that. They must make millions just like the men. We think this is a good thing. And look, Caitlin Clark is going to make millions of dollars this year. Already has at Iowa, will make even more now because of her sponsors and all this other stuff. But we have people running around that are throwing tantrums. Oh, shit, the WNBA is only going to pay her $76,000. We must correct that, because if we pour more money down Caitlin Clark, eventually that's going to reach you down here at the bottom. Everybody believes in trickle-down social justice. If we just treat the people at the top better, wait to see how much better we treat the people at the bottom. It's insanity. I'll let you judge for yourself when you watch the Darjean interview. Do I think he's telling the truth? Probably, just because he's got a lot of corroborating evidence. But like anybody that's in a lawsuit and pursuing money, maybe he's exaggerated a thing or two. I don't know. Maybe there is a side to Deion's story. But the little man has to have a voice. The non-elite has to have a voice. I apologize for being the platform that's going to give the little person a voice. I apologize. I know that many of you are just lost in idolatry, and how dare anyone question a Deion Sanders? You can't question a thing that he does. I apologize to you, but I got into this business to challenge the powerful, to challenge the elites. And whether you like it or not, Deion is an elite and he's powerful. His skin color doesn't reduce his power. It actually enhances it in the current setup we have. Because again, when you can win 4 games and finish in last place in your conference and win Sports Person of the Year and be celebrated as one of the greatest coaches in college football because of your skin color, because we know if he was white and finished last in the Pac-12, he would not be anybody's Sports Person of the Year. Deion is very powerful and very elite. He's been worshiped since about the age of 16. And I've just walked you through. Here's what happens. They come in at 20, 21, 22 years old, all innocent, and we kind of fall in love with them, and they're likable. And then the early part of their career, they're trying to hang on to that. Then the next thing you know, they're LeBron James, and they're telling you that America's scum and that it's better in China, and black people can't walk outside, and you better vote for Joe Biden. And oh my God, someone spray painted my garage in my $20 million gated community house in Brentwood. Oh, when you're black, it doesn't matter how many millions of dollars, it doesn't matter how many employees, how many servants, how many people kiss your butt. When you're black, it's just so hard. If a camera followed LeBron James around 24/7, you'd find out just how easy his life is. Now, does he do some great workouts? Yes. So the 90 minutes a day or 2 hours a day that he's working out, that's rough. The rest of, maybe he has an argument with his wife occasionally but trust me, she ain't arguing too hard. She's happy. Anyway, I'm not saying his life's perfect, but just cry. I'm not going for this, that he's somehow oppressed. It's all a manipulation scheme. And they get other people in the media that aren't as rich as them, but they want to be, and they run in those circles, and they all run around and pretend like they're oppressed. And none of them, the journalists, the celebrity journalists that cover LeBron James, any of his friends, none of these guys would piss on John Darjean or would actually pleasure in pissing on John Darjean. And don't care if this man is disabled. Don't care if this man is broke and has potentially been mistreated. And interview will unpack more of that in terms of how some key video evidence disappeared and how Deion got wormed his way. This John Darjean had a lawyer that quit, that put in all this work, spent money out of his own pocket, and they get to the trial and very close to the conclusion of the trial, and this guy quits. No explanation, not wanting his $40,000. He just quit. John Darjean's lawyer, and John Darjean ended up having to represent himself with some sort of workers' comp lawyer, and still got the settlement and won the judgment of $11.8 million. And Shilo has smartly filed bankruptcy, and we're no closer to anyone paying John Darjean for injuries he says he suffered at the hands of Shilo Sanders. This is how idolatry works. It makes you root for the wrong people, the people that have no concern about you, no interest in seeing you do better. They're just going to give you lip service. And they're going to befriend rappers and everybody else to make, oh, look how black he is. He had the baby in the locker room and he plays rap music. And he left Jackson State, where if he really wanted to help all these poor black people that he's, and left and went to one of the whitest universities on the planet. But yeah, I know he's trying to help you understand how idolatry works, trying to get you to understand it. Maybe what we're celebrating is happening to Caitlin Clark actually isn't a good thing. That's going to be it for us today. We got some extra content coming. Me and Steve Kim talking about Simone Biles. And tomorrow we'll have 90-minute, 2-hour interview with John Darjean on Fearless. So stay tuned for that. See you tomorrow.
Freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want